as mentioned, second most important thing happening in Atlanta last night, the Steelers taking on the Falcons. Another game of ones versus twos. And the Steelers are the ones that played their starters.
Yes.
And Kenny Pickett, oh, by the way, looking pretty good. Kenny Pickett causing people to reconsider where they think the Steelers fit in this very, very top-heavy AFC hierarchy. Kenny Pickett flinging it with those gloves, spinning it with those tiny little hands of his, getting it done for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And you got Najee Harris, and you got Jalen Warren, who's threatening to become RB1. And then you got Pickett. Hey, Pickett's figuring it out, baby. When George Pickens is covered, he's still open. And I made that comment last night. People say, oh, he's going against CB7. I don't care. That guy was covering him, and he still catches the ball. Throw it to George Pickens all the time, every time. This offense has the potential to be explosive, Myles, and when you put with it a great defense. We've known the Steelers' defense is great. The question is, can their offense do enough? Defense, great. Offense, maybe better than expected. Maybe they're going to quit trying to get Matt Canada fired every week in Pittsburgh this year. Maybe this team's going to flourish. So I like what I saw. I like what I saw from Kenny Pickett and company all preseason long. Man, week 1, 49ers coming to town. Chris and I were talking about this the other day. How is that a 1 o'clock game? That's a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff with all the other games. 49ers, Steelers, a Super Bowl matchup that never happened, that maybe will one of these days. That is a hell of a game right out of the gates, and the Steelers are at home, and they're dangerous in week 1. And Mike Tomlin whips them up into a frenzy, and watch out, 49ers. You better take that one seriously because the Steelers are better than anyone is giving them credit for.
They get those towels waving in the fourth quarter. Oh, mama, I'm in fear of my life. And I'm the long arm of the law, baby. And then TJ Watt starts coming. Yeah, Brock Purdy better look out. But, I mean, I've been high on the Steelers skill position, guys, for this entire offseason. And look, I feel like a lot of us as in like media people, are like talking about the Falcons and their potential with the skill group. Like we really should be talking about the Steelers, because look, we know that Najee Harris can run the ball, right? We know that George Pickens can make catches. You know, people might want to say, well, he's going against backup guy, blah, blah, blah last night. But look, we've seen George Pickens make these catches before against first stringers, right? This is not new from George Pickens. It's just a progression of what he's doing. Deontay Johnson, I don't care that he didn't have a touchdown catch last year. That's still a real quality receiver. Pat Freiermuth is one of those tight ends that I think we are going to be really talking about as one of those guys that is in that upper echelon of the tight end group in the entire National Football League. It's all about Kenny Pickett. So if Kenny Pickett can continue this progression, continue this growth that it looks like he's made between year 1 and year 2, then we better look out for the Steelers, because look, I mean, I know we talk about Mike Tomlin never having a losing season, but I believe there probably is some urgency there because they have not won a playoff game since 2016. This might be the year that the Steelers get off of that snide. Oh, also, Coming to America is a 1988 movie. I was wrong. I looked that up. And it's not 1990 like I thought. It's 1988. So I need to issue that correction.
I have a text from my cousin reminding me that it is Coming to America, which is a movie I actually saw, but I've only ever seen it once, and I might have been drinking that night, so I don't remember all the lines. Okay. I do remember some, though. Okay, so here's Mike Tomlin talking about his second-year quarterback, Kenny Pickett, and how he has grown from his rookie year to his second year.
I think the growth is probably associated with being him and not necessarily the surface level things associated with the position, but the leadership things, the communication things, the bringing people together things. When you got a higher level of comfort in terms of what it is that you're doing, then those things probably happen more. And so, that is significant. It's not, play related, but it is. Because he is the catalyst for that unit. He controls the pace and the tenor of that unit. And I just think if he's comfortable, that unit has an opportunity to be comfortable. And I think that's probably the most significant difference.
The Steelers went 21 years between franchise quarterbacks. And I recall, because it was the early days of PFT, back when you were in middle school, I was saying one of these years, the Steelers have to just go draft a quarterback in the first round. They've got to just go get. You're not gonna just trip over somebody. Cordell Stewart never became the guy they thought he was going to be. Neil O'Donnell was there until he wasn't, until he threw 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl and then left for the Jets in free agency. They just went from one kind of mid-level guy to the next between Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. And I think they remembered that lesson, because as soon as Roethlisberger was, ascended into football heaven after that Monday night against your Browns, they went straight to work on getting their replacement, and they got him in Kenny Pickett, and they didn't get desperate. They didn't have to trade up for him. Everybody knew they were going to take Kenny Pickett, and they just sat there and they waited for Kenny Pickett to be handed down to them by the football gods, the same way the football gods accepted Ben Roethlisberger up into the pantheon of kind of all-time greats. So this would be perfect for the Steelers, because that's what you ultimately need. You can't win championships with just a team that has a great defense, as the Steelers learned from 1983 through 2005. Now, not that Roethlisberger was throwing it all over the place when they won the Super Bowl against the Seahawks in Super Bowl 40. That was one of the rare cases where a team won a Super Bowl without a quarterback that was doing a lot. A couple of years later, they won the Super Bowl with Ben Roethlisberger doing a lot. You need a quarterback who can do a lot, who can do it all, who can make it happen, and they may have already found him, and he may already be rocketing toward his ceiling, and that ceiling may be enough to put him in the conversation. Premature to put him there, but he could be there with the Mahomes and the Burrows and the Allens if he keeps on that trajectory. He could be there.
It could. I mean,
or it could be. Hey, wouldn't hurt to be just below them with the rest of that team around him. Still good enough to win games with the rest of the team around him.
Exactly. And Mike Tomlin is going to get the most out of his team. I think that we understand that, at least in the regular season, he's going to be able to coach these guys up, get them ready to play and all that. But I think what is encouraging is that the Steelers' first team offense went out there and did what they were supposed to do in each one of these 3 preseason games, right? You don't want to take too much from anything, but the fact that they were able to do what they were supposed to do is at least a check in the box. It allows you to say, we got this done, and now we can go into the regular season with good vibes. The games now count and everything is fine. We don't really have the concerns, right? Because if you don't go out there and do what you're supposed to do, then you start raising an eyebrow and it's like, uh-oh, is this really going to work? And just because you do what you're supposed to do in the preseason doesn't really mean jack bleep once the games start. I mean, whether Nick Bosa is going to be on that 49ers defensive line or not in week 1, that's still going to be a formidable unit that they're going to have to go up against. So, encouraged, yes. Do you want to take too much from it? No. But I think that, you can't help but look at this offense and think, hey, the arrow seems to be pointing up and in the right direction.
Hey, there's plenty to talk about whether or not Chris Jones is going to be ready to go, even if he shows up today for the Chiefs. At some point, we need to say Nick Bosa won't be ready to go, even if he shows up today for the 49ers. We're 16 days away from 49ers at Steelers. And consider the first 5 games for the Steelers. They have a Week 6 bye. They've got the 49ers and your Browns at home. Monday night, Week 2. Cleveland Browns. I think there's one of those weird doubleheaders that night too, but where they overlap. I don't like the overlapping Monday night games. Not that anybody cares what I think about that or anything else. Then at the Raiders for Sunday Night Football. Then they're at the Texans, and then they have a home game against the Ravens before their bye. 4-1 is not a crazy thought. It really isn't. It all comes down to that first game. If they can handle the 49ers, they may be off and running. And one thing they did last year, even though they had a horrible start to the season, they won in Cincinnati week 1. And so you take a quarterback who is competent, you take an offense that is talented, you take a coach that knows how to put all the ingredients in a bowl and whip it up into something pretty damn good, no matter how, lackluster some of the ingredients may be, and you've got yourself a recipe for a hell of a team. And look, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, because my theory about the Steelers is when the expectations are high, they don't quite make it. When the expectations are low, they find a way to overachieve. And I think that pattern over the years, people are starting to catch on. I've noticed that in Sims. He's kind of, I didn't think they were going to be very good. I have a feeling they're going to be pretty good. So I never write off the Steelers. I've seen it too many times, and this year it's going to be exciting to see what happens, Myles. I'll be very interested to see what they do to your Browns on the second Monday night of the 2023 regular season, which will be here before we know it. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.